well-regulated militia be necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. That, of course, the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. They don't have that in Canada. What they do have is a sweeping gun ban imposed by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau without a vote in Parliament even. Yeah, just a edict, an order in council that has turned some 1,500 makes and models of firearms from restricted into prohibited items in Canada. We're going to be talking about that in just a couple of minutes, but I do want to welcome to the program today our guest, Cibola County Sheriff Tony Mace. Now, if you caught up on Bearing Arms over the weekend, you saw a story about a gun shop in Grants, New Mexico that has been levied with $60,000 in fines for remaining open during the governor's stay-at-home emergency. Grants, New Mexico has made headlines after the mayor there encouraged businesses to reopen despite the fact that the governor's stay-at-home order was still in effect. And now the governor is saying that most of the state can start to reopen. Non-essential businesses can offer curbside delivery, or they can, do stuff outside. But there were 3 counties that the governor said not subject to the easing of restrictions: McKinley County, San Juan County, and Cibola County, which is where Grants, New Mexico is located. And as you will hear in our conversation with Sheriff Tony Mace in Cibola County, that county and how they're dealing with the coronavirus, a far different circumstance than what's happening in the other 2 counties that are on lockdown, which raises the question, is Cibola's shut down for public health reasons or for political reasons? Take a look and listen. Sheriff, thanks so much for coming on the program, sir. It's good talking with you this morning.
Good morning, Cam. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I got to tell you, we've been watching what's going on there in Cibola County, Grants, New Mexico, making national headlines when the mayor there decided he was going to reopen the town for business despite the stay-at-home order. Wrote a story over the weekend about Papa's Pawn and Gun Shop facing $60,000 in fines after reopening. And I got to start with this, Sheriff. You know, Governor Grisham declared over the weekend that, I guess on Friday, that while most of the state non-essential businesses they're allowed to reopen, you can do curbside delivery. 3 counties, she said, in the state still suffering from the coronavirus pandemic: San Juan County, McKinley County, and then Cibola County. And I started looking at the figures over the weekend, and what I saw is that absolutely McKinley and San Juan County really hard hit. Almost half the state's cases and almost half the state's deaths have come from those 2 counties. But Cibola County is a very different story altogether. It doesn't seem like you all, at least in terms of the numbers I saw, that you all are being hit nearly as hard, and yet you're included in the governor's order keeping you all locked down.
Well, that's absolutely right. As of yesterday, we had 63 cases of the COVID-19 virus in our county. We got 1 person hospitalized. I think there's only like 4 deaths. So, we're not impacted by this as bad as some of the other surrounding counties that are to us. And, the governor, we know that that she's a dictator. It's her way or the highway. And with our public health order, the legislature pretty much gave her full authority under that law in the 1950s. I mean, who would have predicted this? But she's got all the power in the world to do whatever. And under that law, that public health order, and, we absolutely know that she's anti-gun. Even though she says she's pro-Constitution, we know she's against the Second Amendment. I mean, some of the direct attacks that we've seen on a lot of our civil liberties and constitutional rights have come out of her administration. And there's been lawsuit after lawsuit filed on this. But we think it's a direct retaliation in Cibola County because the mayor came up and said, hey, we're tired of this. I issued the business license. We realize that the longer we stay closed, the more long-term effects economically it's going to have on us. We need to start opening up under those CDC 20% guidelines and get back on track. So the mayor went out to all the businesses and circulated a petition with the 86 businesses with their license numbers. Everybody supported it. He pushed this bill to get the county back open and running. And there was the rumor mill that the state police was going to come in and they were going to start shutting businesses down. And under the Constitution, you cannot seize somebody's property or business without a legal process. And we didn't want the state police coming in here and being bullies with everybody. So, I contacted the district court. I mean, I can't interfere with the actual issue of the citation because then I would end up in handcuffs.
Right.
But what I did is I contacted the district judge and I said, hey, I want to get a civil restraining order against the state police coming in here and being bullies on Monday when we open up. And, the district judge was kind of like shocked and was like, I can't believe you're talking about that. And, well, we got to do what we got to do, right? Well, I got a call from the sergeant for the area, and he's like, "Are you really going to get the captain? I'm sorry. Are you really going to get a restraining order against us?" And I said, "That's what it takes." So the understanding was, no, it's going to be business as usual unless somebody files complaints to the COVID-19 hotline. Then we have to do what we have to do. And I said, I'll accept that if we have a mutual agreement that we're not going to come in here and bring in extra resources and bully people and start shutting people down. And next thing we know, somebody went around and started just every business that was open, from the golf course to the gun shops, started reporting everybody, which triggered the reports from state police. So they had to go and issue those citations. But the most extreme one was our gun store, Papa's Pawn. They were basically targeted them. They surveillanced them for 12 days. Gave them a $5,000 fine a day for operating for 12 days for a total of $60,000, which we're talking about a pawn shop, gun shop. So the pawn shop is considered a financial institution, especially out here where we're at. When they call it a poor man's bank. When you're in times tough, you go, you pawn something, you get some money you need to survive. Now it's the gun store, and they were providing an essential supply to the law enforcement agency in this area. To try to shut them down, I mean, we have a case pending in court right now to label New Mexico gun stores essential. It just hasn't made its way through the process yet, so we're still waiting on a ruling from that. But Paul and Diane, the owners of Papa Pawn, they stayed open in defiance of the governor's orders, and now they're facing the $60,000 ridiculous fine without even a day in court to protest it or to challenge it.
And I want to make sure that folks understand, from what I have read, it sounds like Paul and Diane, the owners of Papa's Pawn and Guns, they were, only letting, I think it was like 2 customers in at a time, stay 6 feet away. It's not like they were, saying, hey, let's have a big party inside the pawn shop here. They were practicing safe social distancing measures. They were, I think, being cognizant and aware of the pandemic that's taking place in the state and around the country. But none of that mattered because they opened their doors, because they let customers inside. Now, you talk about, the financial side of this being the poor man's bank, and I think that's a fantastic argument. People do need to be able to get food. They do need to be able to get those essential items. Even if you don't consider a gun store to be an essential business, certainly you'd consider food to be an essential item. Certainly you consider housing to be an essential item. And I have no doubt that there were some folks who were pawning some stuff so they could put food on the table or keep a roof over their heads. But he also talked about the fact that this was an essential business as far as law enforcement was concerned. Is that a place where local officers will buy ammunition, will buy things that they need on the job?
Absolutely, Cam. And here's the deal. When we talk about practicing social distancing, Paul and Diane, I can say firsthand, they were excellent about it. They kept the door locked with a sign on it that said, knock if you want to come in, call ahead. They were only allowing 2 or 3 people in. They haven't marked off. There was they had masks in there. They had all their cleaning supplies ready to go. It wasn't a free for all. There was literally less than 2 or 3 people in that store at a time. And they do provide an essential business for law enforcement. They carry ammunition, they carry weapons, they carry holsters. On that side of the store, there's a lot of essential things in there. And the thing that we argued is you can go to Walmart and buy a box of shotgun shells, but you can't go to this small business and buy the same box of shotgun shells. There's no fair protection under the law for these small businesses. And, I just think that, Paul and Diane, they're just the owners of Papa's Pawn. They're just a target of the governor and her radical movement, her radical defiance of our constitutional rights to bear arms, and being able to access those, guns, ammunition, and different things like that.
Well, I got to say, Sheriff, I mean, I wonder if you're not a target of the governor as well. You were one of the first in the state to start promoting a Second Amendment sanctuary movement. You have been incredibly outspoken against both universal background checks and red flag laws. You have been at the state capitol lobbying against these gun control laws. You've been a bit of a thorn in the side of the governor over the past couple of years as well. Do you think that what's happening there in Cibola County is in part payback for your political opposition to the governor's anti-gun agenda?
Well, one can only wonder. I know that myself and the mayor as well. We're both Democrats. I don't follow those party lines. I don't believe in what they do. The same with the mayor. And the mayor's been with me up in Santa Fe. We've lobbied against some of the red flag law most recently, and we've fought her unconstitutional gun control acts tooth and nail. And we've never seen we have never seen these direct attacks on our civil liberties until she was elected into office. And, we've offered some resistance. We've tried to fight for those constitutional rights, and we've been a voice. And, we haven't backed down. So, when you say a thorn in the side, I think it's a little more than that. But, there's been, now it's the retaliation it's like in my mind, I hear saying, well, you guys keep it up because I can do this all day long underneath the public health order. And if you don't like what I do and you don't like the order and you don't like the shutdown, well, maybe if that's not going to suppress you, well, here's the fines, here's the penalties. And, when you've got a one-party system where she controls the legislature, she controls the attorney general's office, she controls the court, and she controls the state police, we're outnumbered and outgunned. And it's a sad day in society and history when the only relief that we have is to file lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit and kind of just hold on by a thin thread. We're on pins and needles over here, fighting for our rights.
Absolutely. And so, and I want to talk about what the situation is like right now in Cibola County, but I want to give folks some perspective again. Governor Grisham on Friday said basically the rest of the state, with the exception of northwestern New Mexico, they can start to open up. But in these three counties, San Juan, McKinley, and Cibola counties, she said the outbreak is still so severe that we got to keep things locked down. Now, here are the cases as of today in McKinley County, or San Juan County. You got 736 confirmed cases, 57 confirmed deaths. In McKinley County, 1,144 confirmed cases, 21 deaths. In Cibola County, 68 confirmed cases, 3 deaths. Sheriff, again, the numbers speak for themselves. San Juan and McKinley County, as I said, about half of the state's cases and about half of the state's deaths, but Cibola County is nowhere near that. So what is the situation like in Cibola County right now? What is going on in Grants? Are businesses still out there to find the governor, or are things starting to get locked down again?
There's still businesses that are defying the governor's order, and I'm not enforcing it, and I'm actually encouraging these people to open up and get back on their feet. We're going to have our day in court, and we're going to, I do believe that we're going to be able to beat some of these orders, but Cibola County, there's businesses that are opening. They're just adapting to this, and they're doing it. It's crazy, and it's horrible to think that they've got to do it on like the criminal element. We got to do it in these backdoor alleys. And try to fly under the wire and find these loopholes to operate and survive. And, we're getting, I talked to the Cibola County Sheriff and the San Juan County Sheriff daily. I don't want to downplay what's going on over there because it's horrible. But, they're a different way of life, and they don't have a lot of resources out in some of those rural parts of the Navajo Nation like we do. Mm-hmm. And, right now, you talk about the governor just enacted the state's riot control act to lock down McKinley County, which, I get what they're trying to do, and I support that we need to contain that virus. But again, that's kind of abuse of authority and control there to use the state's riot control act, because there is no rioting, there is no looting, there is no craziness going on over there. But when they talk about locking it down, I just came back from part of McKinley County, and it's wide open. There's no restriction there where we're at. There's no way to block because there's so many rural roads. And what you'll see is these floods, the flood of people. They know that the businesses are open in Grants, so they're coming down here and getting some of their essential items and doing what they need to do, which has triggered some response from like our big box stores, Walmart, Smith, and different things like that. They've changed their hours of operation to try to limit some of that traffic. But, they're still in, here in Cibola County, it just, to be lumped into those other two counties when you look at Sandoval County and Bernalillo County, the two heaviest populated in our state, and they are like number 1 and 2, and they're right next to each other with the numbers and this virus.
Mm-hmm.
One of those two lumped into this lockdown as well. It just really shows that this is, we believe that, it's retaliation against the mayor, being defiant, and telling the businesses to open up.
Talking again with Cibola County Sheriff Tony Mace. And Sheriff, I heard, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I heard that when Governor Grisham did basically lock down Gallup, New Mexico, said she was shutting down the roads in and out of town, imposing a curfew. Again, the reason supposedly for this was because of the large number of outbreaks there on the Navajo reservation. But I've heard that there's been a ton of criticism coming from the reservation directed at Governor Grisham, basically from folks saying, "Listen, you're locking us up. You're not letting us out. We need food. We need supplies, and now you're telling us that we can't go get them."
Well, absolutely. You've got the Lujan lockdown with no plan B. Is okay. How are we going to get these? These people are in desperate need of just basic necessities out there.
I think the last time you and I were on the
water,
I was going to say, I think the last time I talked with you, you told me that deputies were making a trip out to the reservation there in Cibola County to deliver food because of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. We took some food and we took some pallets of water out to part of the Navajo Nation, the Rama area that sits in my district, and then we took some over to some water and stuff over to Fruitland, which is over on the San Juan side. But we're and there's other groups that are out there just between citizens and different organizations that are getting as much supplies and resources as they can to the Navajo Nation. But we don't have. Our governor's getting critiqued and criticized by him because you're locking us down, but you're not giving us the resources and the necessities that we need out here. And some of these parts of the reservation and the Navajo Nation that you go to, and I mean no disrespect, but it's like going to a third world country. They just don't have the resources that we have out here in, like, say, Cibola County or down in Gallup or different places like that. And they absolutely need as much help as they can get, but they're not getting it. And locking them down, I know we want to control the spread of the virus, but locking them down and not letting them get to the resources, that doesn't help anything.
Absolutely. Do you have any idea when the lockdown may be lifted for Cibola County?
Well, they say May, under those guidelines that we're looking at May 15th at reevaluating it. But over on the McKinley side, under the State Riot Control Act, that was only supposed to be for 3 days over the weekend. Well, this morning come out under the request of the mayor and said, hey, we're going to do it for another 3 days, which is Thursday. So they can do it 3 days at a time. But again, I think this is some more stuff that's going to, under the Public Health Act, under the State Riot Control Act, these are things that when our legislature reconvenes, that there are lawmakers. Our governor doesn't make the law; she just signs off on them. Our state lawmakers, when they reconvene in legislature, they really need to look at at these particular laws and see if they're being abused and see if we need to refine them and really look at what's taken place here and the power control and the overreach of government, because it's clear and present. She's got a direct overreach of the government when she wants to lock down Cibola County and lump it into the other two counties that have a major problem. We're not a problem county, but the other counties that are surrounding us, they have their issues, but they're lumping us into that. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you, and I'll reach out to the governor's office and see if we can get a response from her. But from where I'm sitting, and again, I'm a couple thousand miles away, this does not look like in Cibola County. This does not look like the governor decided to do this for the public health. It seemed like to me she wanted an attitude adjustment in Cibola County, and that's why you all were included in the lockdown orders.
Absolutely, and that's the way it feels. You've got other state parks opened up where people can go out and go fishing. You've got other golf courses that are open where people can go out and practice social distancing and play golf and different things like that. But over here in Cibola, our lakes closed, our golf courses are still closed. Everything's still shut down, and the term is the Lujan lockdown.
The Lujan lockdown. Well, listen, Sheriff, I appreciate you coming on the program, sir, talking with me about what's going on there in Cibola County. We will definitely stay in touch, and best of luck to you and all the other residents there.
Thank you, Cam, and thanks for everything that you do, and hope you have a blessed one.
Thank you, sir. Sheriff Tony Mace joins us from Cibola County, New Mexico, here on Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. We will certainly keep you caught up with what's going on there in Cibola County, New Mexico. Right now, though, let's turn our attention to what happened in Canada on Friday. Justin Trudeau declaring, again, some 1,500 makes and models of firearms to be now prohibited. You can't take them to the range. You can't take them outside of your home. And you've got apparently 2 years to either turn them into police for some sort of compensated confiscation, or maybe you could keep them if you're grandfathered in. There's so much that we don't know about this ban, because despite the fact that Justin Trudeau has been talking about doing something like this for well over a year, when the ban was finally announced, there were still so many unanswered questions. This was still a plan that wasn't ready for prime time. Even if you're a gun-controlled supporter, this plan wasn't ready for prime time. And some critics, some gun control supporters, say that Trudeau's plan does not go far enough. Yes, take a look at this headline from CNN. Of course it's CNN. Trudeau's assault weapons ban doesn't do enough. Why? Well, because this CNN contributor wanted handguns to be included in this as well. Michael Boclercu, a global affairs analyst and a former spokesman for the Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe. He says that while the ban includes mortars, rocket launchers, and artillery, it does not include handguns, which account for the majority of police-reported violent crimes in Canada. So, despite the fact that the most commonly sold rifles in the United States and in Canada, frankly, are now banned, this doesn't go far enough. No, instead, he says whether or not Trudeau's announcement on Friday was a half-baked measure remains to be seen. But what is certain is that with horrific images of mass killings becoming a more familiar fixture on Canadian television screens, now is the time for bold action, especially at our shared border with the United States, to make Canadians feel safer. Not become safer, by the way, but to feel safer. Now, we're going to have a lot more on the Canadian gun ban. I can tell you right now that orders in council can be challenged in court. So the fact that Justin Trudeau was able to implement this through the parliamentary rules without a vote by Parliament does not prevent this from being challenged in a court of law. You also have a couple of pieces of this puzzle that are going to have to be approved by Parliament. So the planned compensated confiscation program itself, that's going to require legislation. That's going to require a vote in Parliament. You also are going to have to, Parliament's going to have to deal with the issue of grandfathering in existing owners of these firearms, which people are saying is a possibility with this. That, too, again, going to require a vote in Parliament. I believe as well, although I'm less clear about this, but I believe as well that the proposal by Justin Trudeau to allow cities to ban handguns, he doesn't want to do this at the federal level, but he wants to empower Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver from banning handguns. That, I believe, is also going to require a vote in Parliament. Now, he might believe that he's got the votes to do this. Liberals do control Parliament, but we are already seeing a great deal of pushback to this gun ban in Canada. You've got several provincial premiers, so the Canadian version of a U.S. governor, that are saying this is the wrong thing to do. That would include the Ottawa premier, Rob Ford. Also, the premier of Alberta has come out and said this is the wrong way to go about trying to make people safer. Focus on the violent criminals. Don't focus on the legal law-abiding gun owners. But again, you don't have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms under Canadian law. There is no Second Amendment guarantees or protections, certainly not any as robust as what we have here in the United States. So I suspect that this is not the end of the argument over the banning of so-called assault weapons in Canada. Rather, this is the end of the beginning of this argument, and we still have plenty of chapters left to be written. One of the things we'll be doing this week here on Bearing Arms Cam and Company is talking with some folks up in Canada about this ban and what happens next in terms of the attempts to implement this measure. Right now, let's get to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, our recidivist report. Recidivist report from California, ABC 7, where a high-risk sex offender rearrested days after a controversial release from the Orange County Jail. Why was he released? Well, this was one of those coronavirus releases. You know, we've got to keep people out of jails in order to prevent the spread or to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus behind bars. So we're letting people out, but don't worry. They're just, nonviolent, low-level offenders, or maybe they only have a couple of weeks left on their sentence. So the public safety is not going to be at risk because we're letting these folks out. So goes the argument. As ABC 7 says, Rudy William Grajeda Magdaleno was released April 13th after serving 71 days in jail on a 180-day minimum sentence. So he hadn't even served half of his sentence. Officials say he has an extensive criminal history, including convictions for robbery, narcotics possession, criminal threats, and child annoyance. In Santa Ana, California police said Magdaleno was at a parole resource center 4 days after he was released when he exposed himself to staff members there. He had also failed to charge his GPS monitor. The device had stopped tracking him the day before. Santa Ana police say that his convictions include a sexual assault on a mentally disabled person, breaking into a home while naked from the waist down, and peering into an 11-year-old girl's room, entering a Santa Ana law office, sitting on the floor, and beginning to masturbate while staring at a woman in the office. And again, go ahead and set him out on the street. Orange County Sheriff Don Barnes says that there was no reason for the early release. He said, my jails aren't overcrowded. He says there are measures in place to allow for physical distancing and quarantining of inmates. He said his jail population is down by 45% since March the 7th, but that, again, didn't stop a judge from ordering the release of these offenders. And Lord knows how long it'll be before Magdaleno is back on these streets once again. Today's Armed Citizen story from WAVY in Norfolk, Virginia, but a story from, WWAY, Tabor City, North Carolina. The Columbus County District Attorney's Office says that a armed citizen who shot and killed an intruder will not be facing any charges because that shooting was a case of self-defense. Cameron Green was shot and killed in a home back on April 21st. The DA's office, John David is the DA there in Columbus County, says after consultation with our law enforcement partners with the Columbus County Sheriff's Office and a review of all available evidence, it has been determined that Carlton Fiddler was legally justified in using deadly force under the defensive habitation doctrine. As Fiddler pulled into his front yard, he pulled out his phone to disable the camera system, and he saw a notification that the cameras on his property had recorded a new event. So we watched the video and saw two guys enter his home through a back window. Fiddler then drove around, parked as he normally does, got out of his vehicle, saw an air conditioning unit had been removed from his home. The window was open. He was standing there at the window, and he saw the two males that he had seen on the security cameras in his home. He then drew his firearm, legally carried, from his holster, ordered the two men in the home to raise their hands. Fiddler stated that the individuals began to move around and towards him in an aggressive manner. That's when he discharged his firearm into the home through an open window. One of the bullets struck and killed Cameron Green. The other male in the home ran off as Fiddler discharged his firearm. He was later caught by the Columbus County Sheriff's Office. Fiddler then called 911. According to authorities, there have been numerous previous break-ins at Fiddler's home. 13 firearms stolen in 2019. Fiddler told law enforcement he was concerned that these could be the same individuals and they might have some of those stolen firearms in their possession. He indicated that he was scared, believed that the intruders had firearms, and was unable to see the hands of the intruders during the incident. All of Fiddler's firearms were locked in a safe and secure. None of them were taken. Law enforcement did find numerous loaded magazines in Cameron Green's pockets, but did not locate any other firearms. The second intruder identified as a man named Keandre Grady. He is going to be facing charges of felony breaking and entering, although he will not be facing any charges related to the death of his fellow intruder. And finally, today, we've got our good deed of the day from New York City, where a New York police lieutenant saved the life of a homeless man there in the New York City subway system. Officers had been going around telling the homeless population, some of which who sleep in the subway stations at night, that they couldn't do that. They're going to have to get out of the subway train so they can all be cleaned and disinfected each and every evening. And Lieutenant Ryan Murphy, as he's talking to this guy, realizes this guy's getting ready to launch himself in front of a train that's pulling into the station. He said, I was able to grab him and basically quickly pulled him back deeper onto the platform. Phidias Peralta is another New York officer. He was there on the scene as well. He said, when I saw him approaching the lieutenant, I noticed he said something, and the lieutenant tried to grab him, and I seen him trying to throw himself towards the train. I see the lieutenant grab the individual and pull him away from the train as it was pulling in. According to WABC in New York City, the homeless individual who Lieutenant Murphy encountered is there or is getting help, and thankfully is alive thanks to the quick thinking actions of Lieutenant Murphy. So in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Lieutenant Murphy, we thank you, sir, for your good deed. That is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. I want to thank you for being a part of the program today. Don't forget, you can subscribe to Town Hall Media at YouTube or Bearing Arms Cam & Company on Apple Podcasts. That way you never miss a program. We'll also be doing another live chat at some point this week. You can become a VIP Gold member so you can take part in that live chat. You can do that at bearingarms.com. We certainly do thank you for your support. It allows us to continue to do the Second Amendment journalism that we do each and every day, including to bring you stories like the conversation we had with Sheriff Tony Mace. And again, we are going to keep a very close eye on what's going on there in the state of New Mexico. But until we talk again, be safe, be well, be free, and we'll see you soon with another edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company.